In 2022, Europe was desperate for gas, and it turned to Washington. By 2025, it quietly turned away. The ports once crowded with American tankers now stand silent. Beneath the ground, new pipelines thunder, from Norway, from North Africa. Brussels never announced a break. It built one. Every ship America sends now funds the pipes that replace it. The White House called it energy dominance. Europe calls it independence. And by the time Washington noticed, the global gas map had already been redrawn. Without the United States, Bloomberg data from September 2025 shows the U.S. exported over 92 billion cubic meters of LNG to Europe last year, more than half its total. It once looked like dominance. Now, it looks like dependency, because behind those record shipments, Europe was quietly cutting loose. Not from ideology, from fear. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, prices exploded. Factories went dark, fertilizer plants shut down, households paid triple their usual bills. The Financial Times reported Eurozone industrial output falling 2.4% in early 2023, driven by energy costs. That winter taught Europe a brutal truth. If energy comes by ship, it can be delayed, diverted, or outbid. By 2025, Europe decided, never again. Europe cannot build its security on floating cargoes, said former EU Energy Commissioner Kadri Simpson. Her warning became policy: pipelines, not ports; steel, not ships. That summer, Brussels approved a $65 billion infrastructure plan, expanding gas pipelines across the bloc. Projects once called regional became strategic: the Baltic Pipe, the Greece-Bulgaria interconnector, the Southern Gas Corridor. Each kilometer of welded steel was a quiet declaration. Europe would not rely on American tankers forever. Pipeline gas costs 30% less than imported LNG. For Germany's steel or Italy's chemical plants, that difference means survival. So Europe stopped waiting and started building. Meanwhile, Washington celebrated. It spent over $100 billion on new LNG export terminals between 2016 and 2024. By 2023, America had become the world's largest LNG exporter, 12.1 billion cubic feet per day. Officials called it energy superpower status. And yet, they kept expanding. 7 more terminals approved by early 2025, another 73 million tons of capacity by 2028, all built on one assumption: that Europe would keep buying. But Europe had learned its lesson. Dependence is a weakness, its solution, permanence. By 2025, the European Investment Bank reversed its stance, funding new gas pipelines as security infrastructure. And Spine. Norway's Equinor, Azerbaijan's Sokar, Algeria's Sonatrach, all signed long-term supply deals with Brussels, not politics, pipes. The US sold flexibility, spot cargoes, short contracts. Europe wanted stability. In February 2025, US tankers bound for Spain suddenly changed course mid-Atlantic after higher bids from South Korea. Legal, but devastating. Europe saw that American energy could vanish overnight. Trust cracked. The response was swift. Bigger storage, mandatory reserves, new interconnectors. By October 2025, European gas storage sat at 82%, more evenly spread across the continent than ever before. Energy was no longer a marketplace, it was a network. Meanwhile, power shifted east. Qatar expanded production by 65%, aiming for 142 million tons by 2027, the cheapest gas on Earth. China locked in 27 million tons a year in long-term deals. India and South Korea followed. These weren't just contracts, they were alliances. But Washington kept playing the short game: spot trades, quarterly profits. As one analyst put it, Qatar plays chess, America plays checkers. Europe chose structure. By 2026, pipelines from Algeria, Norway, and the Caspian will deliver 70 billion cubic meters a year, enough to replace US LNG entirely. Power doesn't shift with speeches, it shifts with infrastructure. Still, America's export numbers rose, up 18% year-on-year in 2025. Washington insists demand elsewhere will fill the gap, but JP Morgan warns prices could drop below $7 per MMBTU, too low for many new projects to survive. Gulf Coast towns that bet their budgets on export terminals may soon face shortfalls. Because every shipment Europe buys today helps build the pipes that make the next one unnecessary. Washington sells freedom of energy choice. Europe buys constraint on purpose. It calls it infrastructure sovereignty, energy that can't sail away. The Wall Street Journal notes, a storm in the Gulf of Mexico can halt 2 billion cubic feet of LNG in hours. A pipeline in Europe, 10 times less likely to fail. Even under sanctions, Russia's Turk Stream still runs, up 37% this year. Steel underground becomes its own immunity. Europe isn't forgiving Moscow, it's insulating itself from Washington. Its July 2025 energy strategy avoids even mentioning US LNG. Instead, it talks of regional resilience. In plain terms, Europe no longer wants to depend on anyone, not even allies. American LNG is now a backup, not a backbone. As one EU diplomat told Reuters, "We appreciate US supply, but we no longer depend on it." The ripple spreads. The resale value of LNG carriers is down 18%. Terminal projects in Spain and Poland are delayed. The once booming US shipping sector is sliding toward overcapacity. Meanwhile, the pipelines hum. Norway, Azerbaijan, Algeria, all pumping steady volumes north. Europe's gas map has rotated from across the Atlantic to across the Mediterranean. The meaning is simple. By connecting to its neighbors, Europe regained something it lost. Strategic quiet. No more pleading for cargoes. Now, it negotiates transit rights. Pipelines have become diplomacy cast in steel. Inside America, the dissonance grows. The Energy Department still projects growth through 2030, but its diplomats report waning influence in Europe. Once, US power came from scarcity. Now, abundance weakens it, and the bigger question emerges on can America keep selling what the world may no longer need? The IMF predicts Europe's factories will get 48% of their energy from electricity by 2050, up from 34% in North America. Gas is becoming the transition fuel that transitions itself out of relevance. Beneath European soil, pipelines hum with certainty. In the Gulf of Mexico, tankers wait for buyers that no longer call. And across trading floors in Houston and London, prices flicker, moving less, mattering less. The US built an empire on motion, cargoes chasing opportunity. Europe is building one on stillness, energy anchored to the ground. One world ships gas in circles, the other welds its destiny underground. And the question crossing the Atlantic now is simple. When the next crisis comes, will America still fuel Europe's survival, or just watch its tankers drift, full and directionless, toward a world that has already moved on? Every ship America sends now funds the pipes that replace it.